Hey folks, everything new under the sun. I've been watching the news, for the last number of weeks. Been very busy with family, and family takes priority over this YouTube channel. And unfortunately for everybody who's listening, but I do appreciate all who are listening and appreciate the content. So as I've been watching the prophetic news, there's lots of people that are talking about World War III, and I have, and I will continue to do. But they others do it very well and cover it more than I do, more thoroughly than I do. And I'm going to stick to the biblically prophetic stuff as much as I can. But I will talk about it where they intersect, where they line up with Bible prophecy. And I think there are some items that are lining up with Bible prophecy. This is one of them, allisrael.com. And Benny Gantz is saying it's now time for action in the north. So talking about Hezbollah and talking about the neighbors to the north, Lebanon, and the larger battles. So the quote-unquote easy battle was that against Gaza and Hamas and the tunnel network. And Israel, I think, found out that actually that is not particularly easy. But even harder than that, if they thought Gaza was easy and it was very hard, how much harder is Hezbollah? And then, how much harder even then is Iran and going after them. But he says the time for action has come. The residents must return. So he's talking about all the people that have left the north because of the fighting, because the bombs falling on their head. And they've left that area. So, there's a large buffer zone there where the land is just empty. The houses are empty. The land is not being worked because of the threat of violence, of war. And so Israel's got to do something shortly, and time is running out. It says Israel should go on the offensive against Hezbollah within days or a few weeks, former War Cabinet Minister Gantz said. The time for action in the north has come if we do not reach a plea deal for hostages within days. And, I think most of the hostages are dead at this point. The last few were killed just hours before they were rescued by the IDF. It's an incredible situation there. It's heartbreaking. But you know what? This is war, and not to downplay it, but this sort of thing has happened all throughout biblical history. The persecution of the Jews, of Israel as a nation. Horrible, horrible things happened in the Bible. Even many would say far worse than what is happening now in terms of torture and other cruel and unusual ways to get rid of people or just torture people, specifically the Jews. Go read your Bible. Go read the Old Testament about Israel and the things that are occurred, and I think your eyes will be open to what's happening now is no surprise, and it's happened all throughout history, and even worse has happened, and even worse is coming. So this is a story out of Australia. Australia plans social media ban for children. Now, it's my opinion that social media is terrible for children. It's terrible for everybody at the end of the day. It's amusement. What does that mean? What does muse mean? Muse means to think. What does a mean when you put it in front of a word like that? It means to not think. You can go look up the dictionary word for that, and basically it means to not think, and that's what amusement is. It allows us to not think for a while, and people use movies as an escape, for example, to get away from the stress of their life. But this is a great example of the fact that people will always, the voting public will always give away their freedom for safety. They will give away freedom for safety. Most people will. Most voting people, they will not vote for freedom. They will, such as freedom against medical interjections, freedom against whatever it may be, freedom against not having drugs or alcohol or licenses for cars. People always vote for more and more rules, and what that means is they always vote for less freedom and more security. This is just the way democratic countries vote, and so this makes sense. But you can see this continuing pressure on free speech and the freedom, free movement of information, and that's what's happening. This one is Algeminer.com. Russia calls on Iran, our important partner, amid reports of missile transfer. Now, this speaks to um, Ezekiel 38 and 39. And this is, of course, the alignment of the neighbors to the north: Russia, Persia, Iran, Turkey, and all the other nations, Ethiopia, all the other nations that are going to come together against Israel. Israel's kind of dealing with the inner circle of nations right now: Gaza, Lebanon, and then they'll start dealing with the outer circle. This is all, Psalm 83 prophecy about the inner circle and the outer circle of battles of nations. And so we have this continued news stream of Russia calling Iran a partner, an important contact for them to have, an important partnership with weapons of war. So the deal likely is it's probably a security deal. And Iran is saying, look, we'll give you lots of the weapons we're making. You just support us. You back us up if Israel attacks. And indeed, that's what's going to happen. And we see Russia totally aligned for that at this point. So the Gog-Magog war could happen any time. And that's the alignment that we see there. This last thing, this is the economiccollapseblog.com, and this speaks about the sun. And I just saw this September 9. The sun is doing something that it is not supposed to do, and that could mean big trouble in the months ahead. Now, what does the Bible say is going to happen in the last days? Well, it says that the sun is going to scorch men with great heat. And this is during the wrath of God. Go read Revelation chapter 6 and onwards, and you'll see that the sun is part of that, and men will blaspheme God when that happens. They don't turn away from their sin and say, you know what, God, you are God. They don't see his creation and see the awesome power of the sun and get on their knees and ask forgiveness or recognize God as God, creator of the world. They actually, knowing that he is God, they blaspheme him, which just cements their position in hell apart from God for eternity. But this is a biblical event. If we are approaching the last days, we would expect stories like this to increase. Frequency and intensity. The birth pains of the last days, and the great struggle that is coming. And it says the giant fireball that our planet revolves around has been far more active than scientists originally anticipated. This is what scientists are finding every time. Every time they come back to a subject and they research it again, oops, it wasn't quite like we said. And remember when climate change, when the Earth was supposed to be destroyed, 10 years ago? I don't know what it was. When Greta Thunberg said, in 3 or 4 years from now, the Earth will be destroyed, we'll all die, humanity will be extinct. Well, we're in the year 2024, and none of that has come to pass, right? Similar thing, scientists go back to the table, look at it again, oops, we were wrong. Because why? Because God is controlling everything. He has the world in his hands. He is allowing things and not allowing things to happen, and he controls the balance of humanity, the balance of nature in this world. He created it, and he is sustaining it. That's the biblical lesson that we need to understand, the biblical truth that we need to understand. So no, it's not necessarily going to go the way scientists think. And they're thinking on a very short time scale. They're looking at the last 100, 200 years, maybe even 500,000 years. But what they're not understanding is that things change over time. Things aren't in the now like they were in the past necessarily. And the past isn't always going to come return to now, and it's not going to happen like it did in the past in terms of global temperatures increasing and that sort of thing. Although I do think there's warming, and the warming comes from the ice age, which happened at Noah's flood. So it was cold at Noah's flood. It was warm prior to the flood because there was a canopy, and the earth was tropical all around. You can see that. You go look up Greenland and alert Northwest Territories. There's trees. They found tropical vegetation underneath the ice, and that's because it was pre-flood that was occurring. It was tropical all the way around. When the ice canopy fell, it created the ice age and the ice sheets, and cooled the earth down, and it's been slowly warming back up since then. So yes, there is I do agree there's a temperature change upwards. but God's not going to allow that to destroy humanity. In fact, God's going to return before that ever happens. But this is one of the things he's going to use his natural creation to bring wrath upon the inhabitants. It says fluctuations in solar activity affect our climate more than anything else, and we also tend to see more earthquakes when solar activity is at elevated levels. Has the sun got more spots on it? Yes, it does. Sunspots. Are there more earthquakes? Yes. Does the Bible talk about the sun increasing in temperature in the last days and scorching men with great heat? Yes, exactly. That's what it says. Does the Bible say anything about great earthquakes happening in the last days? It absolutely does. That's what's going to happen when the Lord returns and sets his feet upon the Mount of Olives, and it's going to split in two. So yes, those things are hand in hand. Those are part and parcel of the same thing of God's timeline, of his design and his plan for the future. It says the current solar cycle is supposed to reach a peak at some point during the next 12 months. But so far, there are no signs that solar activity is slowing. And I suspect it will slow up until the time when God says, okay, things are ready to go. But I also believe that overall, just like all the aspects of biblical eschatology and prophecy, all the lines, all the converging lines of prophecy are going to increase in frequency and intensity. So we're going to see a hotter sun. We're going to see more earthquakes, just like the Bible said, just like the Bible predicted, because it's on God's timeline. He is a timeline. Things are happening according to his timeline. So we would expect this to happen. We know that the sun is very hot when the Lord returns, and his anger and wrath is falling upon the earth. And one of the things he uses is a hot sun. So yes, it's heating up. Makes sense because it's winding up for the last days. So folks, I'll leave it there. Just a little look at some of the headlines that I think fall into eschatology, Bible prophecy, and indicators that we are in the last days. And all the other things are going to come and go. All the wars and rumors of wars, those are all things that are going to continue to happen. If there is a major shift on that front, I will make a video about it. But as always, every once in a while I kind of reset and say, okay, what's the important stuff that we're doing here? And I think the important stuff is relaying what I know about what the scriptures say about the last time and tying that directly to the headlines. You can go to Canadian Prepper and listen to all the conjecture about what's happening with the war in Ukraine or other folks. But what Canadian Prepper and other folks won't tell you is, well, how does that line up with the Bible prophecy? What does the Bible say is going to happen? If the Canadian Prepper is talking about nuclear war, what does the Bible say about nuclear war and nuclear weapons? By the way, I made a series on that about what the Bible says in verses that seem to indicate a use of nuclear devices. But anyways, I'll always try and tie it back to that. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you watching and your patience. Know that it's a busy time for me. My kids are right in that key age range where they need a lot of my attention, and I got to do the right thing for them and for the family. And so please pray for me. I would appreciate your prayers, and I know you understand that, and I appreciate you guys. So thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next video.